Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Good Servant Show. Today, Luke is backstage, and we're going to chop it up this morning, man. Praise Jesus, number one, first and foremost, the star of every show. Bigger than a star, the God of every show. It's like there's not word big enough for him, right? And so I love him so much. And yeah. Alrighty, guys, let me turn this off here. Click. Man, sometimes I think about like if there's gonna be people left behind, if they're gonna find this stuff, right? Watch these shows, and I'm gonna be bumbling around or whatever, and you know, I don't know, man. I hope it helps somebody. I do, and I hope that us to be able to talk about God and sharpen up too. All right, let me add Luke real quick. Hello, Luke. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, brother, I'm fine and dandy. How about yourself?
I got you at the last minute, man. So I was sitting here right at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? I'm like, all right, okay, I'm gonna straighten out everything here and get ready for the show, right? Like think of things to say, right? And wait for the spirit to get me, right? And so I'm like sitting there, and then next thing I know, it's like 6:51, and I'm like, what day is this, right? I'm like, okay, it's still the morning. I'll send a thing to Luke, right? Like 2 minutes before the show, probably, and you show up, and everything's perfect.
Wow, yeah, that works out perfectly. Would you like doze off for a little bit or?
I did almost 2 hours, man. That's a big sleep for me, man.
Yeah, must have been a good sleep when you wake up. You don't even know what day it is for a second.
Mhm. I know it. Well, one time, okay, so not to stay on this too long, but one time, um, it was like I want to say it was like maybe 4 or 5 months ago. It could have been a little longer ago than that. I'm not sure, but I slept like I was like I don't know, like 4.5 hours or something like that, and I woke up and I didn't realize that I had these crusties in my eyes, like you don't get those when you only sleep an hour. And so I was like, oh man, what's happening, man? And then I'm like, oh, I remember these when when I was a kid, like a little eye crusties or whatever. And I'm like, how gross is that? But it's like, I was grateful, right, that I slept that long. But it was weird to experience that again, those things or whatever.
Yeah, I experience that almost every morning. So yeah, you must just take like increments of naps all the time for a while then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This has been going on for like a decade, man. For me, at least. Like I think the last time I slept good, all the way good, man, I might have been in the army, man. Like mid 20s maybe. So that's like
Wow.
20 years, man. Well,
Yeah,
at
that's
first,
wild. I mean, I guess however it works, you seem to be functioning and going at it. So, however you sleep is, as long as you're functioning the next day, I guess that's what works. And maybe eight
yeah.
hours a night at one session isn't for everybody.
Well, like okay, so if you're used to getting 8 hours, right, a night, and then you only get like one or two, you feel horrible, right? You feel like you're like, man, I slept horrible last night. I can't even function, right? And so if you go like, a week or two or even a month, right, of doing that, it is like straight up suffering, right? You're like, oh man, I need to find a way to get some sleep. But there is some kind of weird thing where you push past it and then it doesn't even matter anymore. Like when I wake up, I'm not tired. I'm not like I don't feel yucky all day long. Like there's something that like it just doesn't happen to me anymore. I don't know, man. I don't know. I almost feel lucky to have it, but I'd rather sleep 8 hours.
Yeah, yeah, it's got its good and bad. I mean, it's kind of makes it easier to plan around things when you're only sleeping like a couple hours at a time.
It does, it does. And then like if someone texts me, like I'm never like more than 2 hours away, you know? Like I'll get back to you real quick. It's like I'm always up.
Yeah, yeah, hey, maybe that serves a purpose.
Yeah. I know that it made me feel happy when I learned that Jesus took naps, you know. He was always taking naps. He even took a nap during the storm on the boat. Remember,
Yeah,
they all thought they were gonna die, and he was just taking a nap. You know, I'm like, that's right. He does take naps. I'm like, because you don't ever hear of them saying Jesus wakes up from a 12-hour sleep or big old long 8 hour. It's
yeah,
always
that's true.
nap,
I've never really thought about that.
And I'm like, wow, I want to be like him, even if it is like in that kind of way where it doesn't really benefit me. I just think it's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, brother.
I would love to hang out with a guy like that. It's like, hey man, is it time to go to bed? He's like, oh, I just take naps, you know? I just take naps, brother. I'll see you in an hour, I'm like, all right, all right, all right. I don't know why the Pharisees got a problem with this guy. He seems cool. But there's always going to be people, man, that they don't want it to be easy for everyone else. They don't want anyone else to make it. They want it to be hard, you know? And I'll never understand that, right? Like there's there's people out there that want it to be the law so that only certain people can go. I've heard people say that to me, man.
That's insane, man.
It is insane, man. Okay, the most insane thing I've ever heard, right, was um, I was explaining the end times the way I understand them, and I said, yeah, at the end, right, um, the the Israelites, right, they get another chance to get saved because there's blinders on for them, right, and so they get another chance to get saved, and uh, they said, oh, that's not fair. One more chance, they get one more chance. It's not fair, and they were angry, and I was like, what are you talking? I'm like, what? I don't care if it's a million chances that they give people, right? Like we're lucky that we're even included in this. Like, 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 like no one qualifies, right? So if God wants to give somebody, like, say just one person a million chances after it's all said and done, then so be it. It's the way I look at it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. If anything, you'd want more chances, and I don't know. It's like, if you want God to show you mercy, you gotta be able to show mercy to others too. You know.
That's right. I mean, that's straight up scripture right there. And I think we do get like I do feel it like we get measured back like our judgment for other people because I notice it like when I'm like being like judgmental in some kind of way that it does come back to me, maybe not exactly like that, but like the same kind of thing, like, oh wow, I'm getting like tested because I was doing that to other people. And so, I can't really explain like a good example. That's hard to explain. But
Yeah, I just kind of see what you mean. It's not like quite karma, but it's almost in a way where God like kind of shows you what you were doing to the other person by having it done to you in a way, or at least like having something done to you to where you understand what you did. You know, if that makes sense. Hello.
sorry, my brother. Sorry, my brother. I could hear you the whole time. Yeah. Well, what comes to mind is you reap what you sow, right? And it's kind of like the Christian karma. Like when people say karma, and then I hear Christians say, "Oh yeah, well I don't believe in karma." I'm like, "Well, I believe in you reap what you sow. That's for sure." and God started all that. Don't give anybody else credit for that. Like I just always, oh man, it's just there's so many things to say nowadays, and there's so many deceptions to be uncovered. But like the crazy part is when you try to uncover these things, sometimes you sound crazy. And so there's always going to be people that reject that. And so there's like things that like I want to reveal, right? That I think are super interesting, but I don't know if everyone will take it the right way. And
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. Just like kind of even in personal life, you got to know like not know your audience, but like know who you're talking to and how far along like somebody is. Somebody's completely full of like hatred and like, they really like despise God because maybe they grew up like just being deceived or whatever. Somebody like that, you're going to have to take baby steps. You're not, it all comes to the heart. It's probably best not to like correct them on every little thing versus like somebody who's like, been a Christian for a while, you almost kind of have to hold them to a higher standard in a way. That doesn't mean like you try to like, look for an opportunity to like expose them or call them out. It's got to be from the heart. But, our Christian brothers and sisters are at a higher standard than somebody who is completely lost and confused and they don't even like know right and wrong.
yeah, no, I get, yeah, I get what you're saying. It's like with each other. I even think it like the way I look at it, right, is like if it's my Christian brother or sister, and if I know that they trust me and they'll listen, and it's to benefit them, I'll go up to somebody and say, hey, brother or sister, like, hey, you've been doing this, as part of your character, and it's not really good. It's up to you to get rid of it or not. If you trust me, I'm just letting you know. And that's the only type of judgment I feel comfortable with, because that's all out of love, all to make that other person better, and it's really their choice, right? And like it's hard to like go to somebody lost and expect them to. You're right. It's like it's so hard to do that because they don't even know who they are with God yet.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So those kind of things and how to approach that can be difficult. But I always try to think is like at the end of the day, is it gonna benefit them, And sometimes I do feel like maybe I do say too much or I don't say enough, and I just try to trust God and you know um expect Him to handle the situation at some point, and not worry about it too much. But it still comes to my mind because it's tough. It's tough to like explain things to people.
I think you're better off. I think. Well, I can't give advice, but I think you're like I would be almost better off like not doing anything than doing something and messing it up. So like I get what you're saying. Like is like like it's sometimes it's better, even though you could probably fix it, just to not do anything and trust that God will take care of it. I like that. Like I mean, learning how to live with some of these, like the nuance of like how to live, right, and how God wants us to live in like uh these spiritual concepts, right. Learning how to live like with these things, right, is like the key thing that I want to talk about on this show, right, is like guys trying to figure it out, how to live the best they can as a Christian, so that other people will want to join us. I think that's important.
Oh yeah, and then people kind of see that character. So if you're showing other people like love and compassion and listening, so say somebody's really going through a rough time and nobody's listening to them, or when they do, they just start judging them and belittling them. Sometimes it's just being there and listening to somebody, and then maybe they would open up more. You know what I mean? So I think it's like part of like your character too, where it's like they might just approach you, they might ask you about things just because they have that trust or like they see something in you to where it's like, okay, I could trust this person.
Yeah, like if you're doing what you're saying, like what you're talking about, if you're walking what you talk, and I think that that's like so like the thing I try to do, right? So there there's two ways that it can happen. Either one way, which is automatic, right? Which is like, okay, well, I feel good. I feel like I'm in the spirit, and just naturally, like certain things will grieve my spirit, or certain things will will be attractive to me, like reading the Bible, or things that will, like, edify other people. Or there's times where I'm not really in the spirit, right? And I am trying to get there, right, to where you know for some people I guess it's easier, but sometimes it's an effort, and it's like, okay, well, I got to measure my character with how was Jesus in this situation, or what would Jesus do in this spot. And so try to be forgiving and really patient with people, especially, like, if you're on a live show, and there's a little bit of pressure, people are coming at you or whatever. You got to be calm and know who you are to God. And so you hope that you're in the spirit all the time, right? But sometimes it's for me it's an effort, and it's like, oh, i better I better really check myself, because it's this other person's heart is what's on the line, and I'm trying to reach their heart, and they don't even know it. So it's like they're working against me too, like, so it's like, I try to keep the thing that's important, without feeling, without getting in my emotions. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, exactly. No, I get what you're saying, and sometimes it's hard to catch yourself, or you don't realize that you're getting in your emotions. Because I remember, not the last time I was on, but before, I was saying how, like, are you doing like what, letting God handle the situation, or are you trying to handle it yourself? And it's hard to like tell sometimes. So I was like thinking about it, and I think when like you pray about it, you're obviously letting God handle a situation because you're going and praying about it. And then when that action's happening, I think he'll let you know if it's like you trying to do it, or, if you are, letting God handle the situation. You know what I mean? But I think we all have times where you get caught up and it's like more our emotion than the Holy Spirit. But I think it's important to at least realize that, and you can step back and then, let the Holy Spirit, take control.
Yeah, because it's like we're trying to do what we think is good, or the next step, right? Like, oh yeah, I think this will be a good thing, or like even something simple, like, oh yeah, um I don't know, I don't know, have an example, but there's like many times where, like, I'll try to do something that I think God would want me to do, when I was never led to do it. And you're right, you like to distinguish that, right? Which part is me, and which part is me letting God guide my steps. And so I had a conversation with AJ Blunt about like 4 or 5 months ago, 3 months ago. It's hard for me to know how long ago things were, but like that basically changed a lot for me, because I was kept trying to push more, like add more things, uh, add more to the. I kept pushing more and more and more, and it was me doing it. And it was ugly, man. And I think that once I just like started just relaxing, and like you know letting that spirit take over, because there was a good buzz here, right? like like um a remnant of people that come here regularly, that are just positive, good people, man. And I don't mean to say it in, like, of course, biblically we're all equally bad, right? And we're only made righteous by Jesus, but when we're here, um I mean, it feels like, we should be letting that take over, like the Holy Spirit that comes together when there's, like, a few of us here, right? We got to let that take over, and those are the best shows. Those end up being whether they were good or not, it's always the ones where everyone's leaving happy. and he's just amazing, man. Like God can make anything good, you know, and it's like totally effortless. And it's like almost like the less effort from us, the better off it is for, I don't know.
No, yeah, you're right. You know that it's like, it's hard to explain because it's not like saying, "Oh, just don't do nothing" or whatever. But it's like when you literally just put God first and let Him do the effort, and you don't try to think of emotion or like what you think's the best solution. It all just like it all just comes, and float. It all just kind of works out, without even pre-planning or any of that.
Right. I remember like when I first started this, like even contrary to how I even felt like when I prayed about doing this, uh, it was like I was still thinking in my mind, right, that okay, I'm gonna convince people that God is real, and then they're gonna get saved, like in like one day, like I really had that mindset that there was gonna be like sheep every day, like so I don't know, like I totally had a different I totally had an upside down view of what was really gonna happen, and
Yeah, and
but
what's happened is great because of the Holy Spirit, and like this is a real church, and we're all connected. So it's great, but it's like a great thing that happened in a different way than what you thought. You thought it was gonna be picking up a bunch of sheep, but it's more like
like a
maybe a
sales
sheep
job,
here and there, but it's more our spirits just growing. You're a lot of people probably came to your show already Christians, but I'm sure a lot of us are a lot stronger Christians just being here all together, picking up kind of picking up each other's slack. We're all playing a different part of the body, a different part of the temple, and we're pretty much putting this puzzle all together.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a sales job, and like I
That's true.
remember just
That's
like even with when I was over really hanging out with Arwen a lot, right? I wanted Arwen to make it, and I spent 4 years, like 3 or 4 years, man, like trying to convert him, poor guy, man. But I used to do this, right? What I do now, but for one guy. Can you imagine like how overwhelming that probably was? And but you live and learn, right? You're like, okay, well, that's not how it works. God creates the new believer when that person's has free will, so they have to want it, right? And then it never happens how I think it's gonna happen. So I can never describe the process. It's so weird, man. I just want to be able to say it like in one little package that everyone will agree with.
Yeah, but the big thing is to keep in mind too, like you said, it's not a sales job, and it's the fact that like I do think it takes that like supernatural like thing to happen where like God calls upon your spirit and then something resonates with you and then your spirit starts to understand and then you start to have that thirst and you start to want to like grow in faith and know God because there's people who grow up as a Christian and go to Bible school and all that, and they just kind of do it just to get through, but they don't have like that heart or that passion, at least not yet. You know what I mean? And I do think it just takes God to actually call you to grow. So worrying about waking everybody up, that might not be your job. And it's the fact of letting God take care of everything because when you almost see it in third person instead of like is this gonna like make me feel good or of course it will because you want like save people but it is hard because you start getting emotional and like trying to do this for yourself and for the other person if you know what I mean where you're not just trusting God to eventually just take care of everything because it's all fair, right? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's all fair. And I actually know somebody who's an atheist, and he told me the one time he did pray is because he was on a roof and he thought like he was doing something. I don't know if he was like on a scaffolding or like he was actually on a ladder or on the roof, but he said he was like doing something, right, where he was up high and he thought he was going to fall off and he was praying to God And he said that was the only time he prayed to God. So I think like a lot of people wake up in near death situations too. I'm not saying it should be like to the point where you're on your deathbed to wake up, but it shows that like God is his judgment is going to be fair. You know, you might not understand how or why it's fair yet, but you know, when you have that faith and trust, you know it's fair at the end of the day. So you can't beat yourself up, you know, trying to you know, save one person over and over. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
God will kind of let you know when you're doing too much or when you're not doing enough. But yeah, it's one of those things, man, because I still stress about that all the time, you know, where it's like, man, I'm not saying enough. I could be telling my buddy this, and then maybe he'll, you know, start to like be more interested. And it's just like, can't really stumble upon that too long because you know, then that's less time where, you know, I could be on this show right now and like things like that to where you can actually have more spiritual progression with other people.
Yeah, and see, I mean, just knowing that God creates every new believer and God's in charge of everything is like that's the most helpful part, and that was like the biggest thing to learn like back then. And so like I'm glad to know that, right, that no matter what happens, right, I'm just this little tiny nothing, right, and the end result, right, the final draft, right, the final thing is on God. God's in control of everything, and it will be fair. And you know, it might not be the same opportunity that everybody gets, but maybe the one chance they get is so profound that they change in one day, you know. And the million times I've heard it, you know, equaled that one experience for that person, right? And so like you're saying, like your friend, like that was up high, right, like something like that, boom, and you change, you know. And I mean, I love like hearing how like it's always a different thing, or you know, oh, people are led through their salvation, you know, a little bit differently, the same but differently. And but you know, like I find myself sometimes like where I'll read the Bible, something will seem like really simple to me. I'm like, okay, well that's how you do it, and it seems cool to me, right? But then someone will be saying it in a way complicated way that's like I'm like, oh, that can't be it, because it feels different than that. Have you ever been through that where like you're like, oh, I think these people are tripping, man, because it doesn't feel like that to me.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any specific examples right now, but I'm sure that's happened. Yeah.
I wouldn't put you on the spot or anything like that, right? So like come up with anything specific, because it might even cause contention, but like, and I shouldn't have kind of went there, but like it's true. Sometimes I'll read something and I'll get a good idea of what it means, but then I'll hear someone else describe it, even someone far smarter than me, or you know, one of these pastors or whatever on, you know, one of these channels, and like, and I'm like, oh no, that's not what it didn't sound like that to me. It sounds way simpler than what this person's saying, you know, and it sounds like way more, way more free, way more, uh, you know, like it's a choice, you know, you know what I mean? It's a free will
Yeah.
choice. You could choose to
Well,
have it. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't seem that hard to me, right?
it sucks because I can't think of any examples, but I definitely know what you mean, and that's why like you know the actual Hebrew language, you know, I think it does help to know like certain meanings more because they say oh like the origin of this word in Hebrew means this, and then it changes up like you know what it means from that section of the Bible that you're reading, and I almost think like you don't have to like know all these like words what they mean in Hebrew because you know I don't think God's like you know trying to make things super complicated and difficult. I'm sure you can have more of an understanding and all that, but you know what I mean. It's like they change it up completely because it's like oh this word in Hebrew means that, so now that word that you were reading, you know, didn't mean what you thought it meant at all, and then like completely change. And I think sometimes, I'm not saying there isn't anything to it, but I think sometimes like people try to complicate things more, make it like, more, where something's like almost like literal, but then when they look up the Hebrew definition, now all of a sudden this verse is metaphorical. You know what I mean? And then it kind of brings in confusion.
Yeah, it's like there's something added to make it sound more profound or more complicated than it really is. To me, if I read the Bible, and I'm not trying to say I know anything more than anyone else. I mean, I I'm just a baby in this, and I make mistakes all the time. Trust me, I hear it all the time. But like, I'm not above the uh I understand that I make a ton of mistakes and that I have a long way to go in life. But some things when I read them sounds simple, and I don't like say you turn on audio Bible, you don't turn it on and then start like arguing with yourself while you're reading it. You just believe what it says, like it just seems
Oh yeah.
easy,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like
I think you said that last time we were talking too. It's like when you're actually listening to the Bible, it's like, all right, I understand it. I'm not really second guessing anything. There are some like verses, where it's like I don't quite understand it, but I move on. You know what I mean? But like for the most part, it's like pretty good understanding. And then when you hear a pastor or somebody else, they explain it a whole different way, where it's like, was I not understanding this at all? Or like, are they like twisting things up or what's going on? Because when like I don't like have a third party involved when I'm just reading or listening to the Bible, it doesn't really confuse or stumble me too much. You know what I mean?
better,
Like,
right?
it doesn't stumble me now, but like a couple of things used to stumble me to where it's like, oh, haven't I called out demons in your name and like all that? But I kind of get that because we wouldn't really like act like that. You know what I
That's
mean? It'd be
right.
no different than the kids like at the market saying, "Oh, we played a flute for you, but you didn't dance." You know what I mean? Kind of like that kind of like mentality.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people coming to me and being afraid of that passage, and I'm like, yeah, but like think about this scenario that God's putting out there, right? That these teachers were coming up to him, uh, look at all these things I've done in your name and cast out demons and all this stuff, right? Like if you're going to God, right? Right at the end, right at the kingdom of heaven, and bragging about stuff, man. Does that sound right?
No, that sounds prideful.
right. I would be at his feet, man, kissing his feet, like oh, I'm nothing. Just oh, thank you for letting me in. Like I can't believe it. This is the greatest day of my life. In worship, right? It would never be hey, look what I did, and you didn't you're not considering this. Like what, like somehow God let you down or something, or like it's absurd, right? And then there's and I'm like, yeah, I just don't want people to be afraid of that, right? And because it's if you don't do what's in that scenario, then it can't happen to you. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, very true. What's because it kind of makes me think about like the Cain and Abel and like the offering they did. Like why did God not like Cain's offering? Was it kind of the same like reason almost like because he was prideful and it was something that like he did, and was that like kind of like a message, or well, what do you think about all that?
It's just jealousy and envy, right? Like, yeah, basically, he wanted to give God his best stuff, but that's not what he was asked to do. He was asked to bring up the sacrifice just like Abel brought, a lamb, right? And so he was supposed to do it exactly how Abel did it, but he didn't because, one of them did vegetables, one of them did animals, right? And so there was pride in what he was doing. He was trying to offer something right to God, right? But he was being envious of his brother, right? But there's many layers to that story, right? There's many layers to why all that happened, right? But that's one of them.
Yeah, yeah, it kind of like shows too how like people say the Old Testament's so relevant. We're talking about yesterday, or it's saying it's like a lot of these things in the Old Testament is like almost symbolic to what happens in the New Testament, and it's like kind of the same thing where it's like Adam took the fall for Eve when Eve ate the apple. It's like Jesus taking the fall for us. It's all these like I can't describe the word, but it's like foreshadowing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Well, a couple of things, right? So we were supposed to, if everything went well in the garden, right, and nobody messed with that tree, then all human beings were going to get um, a conditional immortality, basically, right, or conditional everlasting life, meaning like as long as Adam can get to that tree, he was going to live forever. And same with Eve, but because they got to that tree, they got banned from that tree, and they were going to die, right, because they couldn't, because they were banned from the garden, right, so they couldn't get to the tree of life, so eventually they were going to die. And so I thought it was really interesting um how Adam lived to be like 930 something or whatever. And how like um the day of the Lord is 1,000 years, right? Like when they talk about like prophecy, 1,000 years is one day to God, right? Like it's like one day. And so the whole creation is like a week, right? And so Adam didn't live through the day,
Oh
after that.
wow.
And
I
neither
didn't
did
think about
Eve,
that.
right? And it's very interesting to think about that way. And it wasn't until just recently someone like, said that in a comment. I'm like, wow, I never thought of it that way because like, yeah, I know that like when God says you'll surely die, I mean, and then Adam did die, his flesh body died, right? And so it's like, okay, that's true, but it's hard to reconcile that it didn't happen right away. And so like to know that like, oh, it did happen right away, because like that amount of time is very fast for God, right?
Yeah, that was not even a full day. And
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy that because you could just go through like how just not even just like the events, but like just the whole mathematical part of it. It's like it's crazy how much like it all adds up. And I'm not as knowledgeable as like some of the like people I hear on YouTube and all that, but it's like man can't write that book. You know what I mean? Just the
No
way that
way.
everything connects, it's unbelievable.
No way can anybody. I mean, no way. And knowing the things that are, okay, if the history we're taught is correct, right? And let's say Jesus was here and there was no electronics or iPhones or none of that, right? Like it really was people were, in the desert. Like he would have had to have been able to predict, right? Things way in the future, like way in the future that would never have seemed possible at that time, right? Like a text message and all that, like none of that would be able to, and so to say like, okay, well, information is gonna like, knowledge will increase, but exponentially. I mean, by what process were they thinking? There was no process for that to happen, for knowledge to like increase every day, double or whatever. You know, from when I was a kid, having to ask your dad, like, "Hey, Dad, how many teeth does a hippo have?" Or if your dad didn't know, you didn't know. You know, and now we're at Google, where you can know anything, that they have on their thing, right? And so, how would he know that? And how would he? And then calling Satan the prince of the power of the air, and now look at all these airwaves and all these ways that
All these
information travel.
frequencies. Yeah, it makes
You know
sense.
what I mean?
It's like before like cell phones and like the internet and all that, you would have no idea what like the Prince of the Air means. You wouldn't even, you know what I mean? It wouldn't be witnessing that.
Right. It would mean something totally different. You're like, okay, is it gonna come down like lightning or rain or something, or like a storm, right? You your idea, your whole worldview would be totally different. It's like when you found out that you're not on a spinning ball no more. right? And like your whole belief system, right, is different now because now you know, like, okay, well, I'm in here, right? God put me in here, and it's not moving, and it didn't form naturally, right? All these are like truths that help you, like, kind of map out what your future decisions are going to be. But if you start off with a view that's impossible at the time, right, then it's not a choice that you can make because it's not possible. And so to be able to predict the Bible all the way out to where, oh man, like, especially when it says things like, people will travel to and fro, like people will, like, there'll be all these people traveling when during those times, a person didn't get more than 30 miles usually from their house, from where they were born.
Yeah, now there's cars, trains, airplanes. Like how do they even know all that?
Yeah, yeah. And not only that, but this is one thing I tell people too, is like, well, what about these verses, right, that I read just on their own that come true in my life? Like, if I resist the devil, he'll flee from me. Or, vengeance belongs to the Lord, right? If I keep forgiving and I keep loving on somebody, God's not going to let that person take advantage of me too bad. And so, like these are verses I've tested in real life that have come true, and that are my own experiences. And so, that's what I tell people that are like saying that the Bible's not real or whatever. I mean, because, like, to be honest, like, if I was only worried about myself, right, and I didn't think about like other people, and really grieve for other people that aren't gonna probably make it, like, I'm so full of peace and joy, and I know where I'm going when I die, and it's almost like winning the lottery, right? But then knowing that, like, someone else could have that same feeling and they don't have it, there's something about that makes me want to work really hard. It
Yeah,
just
no,
it
I
makes it
understand,
clear.
man. It's like it's weird because it'd be like you're in a room with somebody else and there's a feast, right? And they're super hungry, and you're like, you could just eat if you want, and then they just choose not to eat, and it's like, what's going on, you know?
Yeah. Frack says, so who here should fear? Oh, nobody should fear anything. And I haven't found what I'm looking for yet. In a
Yeah,
lot
see
of
now
ways,
this is like like the fair God is like the beginning of knowledge, and that's the thing because it's like then you kind of woke up to this section like, whoa, this is real, like, God's more powerful than, all these things in the world that I put first, and now I want to put God first. You know what I mean? So like when they say fear the Lord, it's not like you wake up and like you're scared that like, you're not going to be in salvation. It's more out of love. But I do think the fear does come first a little bit, just so you know how powerful and how real God is. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean like, when you're trying to have a relationship and grow closer to God, that doesn't mean that you just fear God. It's like, yeah, you understand how powerful he is and you take him seriously. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
I do think
it,
that fear does
it,
come first because you got that biblical knowledge. You finally got that understanding, so of course that's going to come first because everything you knew was a lie.
yeah, and then it's like, it's more of a reverence, right? Like it's so much respect, right? Knowing what he can do to us.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I agree,
he
it's more of a
can,
respect anything.
and so there's just like the way I look at it, there's nothing better. Like, there is no other goal on earth than knowing God. God is like, I used to think that God was like a part of my life, right? Like, okay, well, um, God's going to be this big part of my life. And, you know, once I learned about flat Earth, right, and then it like clicked in my head that science was all wrong, right? And I was like, wow, that's the last thing I needed to know that for sure, right? I'm like, wow, there's no doubt, right? then it became like, well, there is nothing else but God. Like there is like, forget about a big part of my life. Like life doesn't even belong to me, right? God is in the center, right? My needs are like diminished, right? And I get all my joy from God, right? I don't get that from, if I'm waiting for you to make me happy, then I'm putting you before God, you know? I already know who I am with God, right? So that joy and that peace comes automatically before I should even encounter another person, you know? And I think sometimes like just knowing who you are with God um, can get you through a lot of things, right? Because you're gonna hear a lot of things like doing this kind of thing if you're in a spot where you're trying to help people. Some people will hate on you just for that, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. And not yeah, God is the center, but I think he thinks of us in a way as the center too, because this all is like about us. There's not space and all these other planets, and we're just like some being that God made, and they kind of forgot about. Maybe he'll get to us at some point. No, it's not about that. It's like, he literally has, his angels look out for us, give us messages. He tries to, protect us from demons and all that. And it's like all this whole scenario is about, like, God's children. You know what I mean? That's what's crazy. It's not like we're just some being that God created and now he's focusing on like Mars, or he's focusing on a different Milky Way, and then, he'll give us maybe a little bit of time at some point. It's like, no, it's like God's probably, watching us 24/7. You know what I mean? God, we are like the biggest part, like God in a way. You know what I mean? And that's what's crazy about it. That's how much love and all that he shows, because this is it. There's not other planets and all that. And you start to think about that, you're like, wow. Like, we are really children of God.
Yeah, I mean, like once it clicked in my head, right, that like everything in creation was made for us, right? Specifically as a function to us. Like water wasn't discovered; it was created specifically for our body. like it wasn't like, oh yeah, we found some stuff we could drink, like we'll add some like cherry flavor and it'll be all right, like like it should have been just perfect the way it is, and so like like every star in the sky, right, every animal has a function for us, right, as it relates to us. And it's just amazing, right? You go from being a speck, right, in this universe or whatever, that where you really are nothing, right, to believe in that. It's almost contrary, right? It's like one or the other. Which one do you believe? Do you believe that God specifically created you and put you in here, right, and you're special, right? Or are you a speck and you're flying around out there? And once you can, like, prove it enough, like, to where it's easy to accept as even as a human being, even if you never picked up a Bible, you can believe in flat earth. It's easy, right, to reconcile that. But then, like, to know, right, that just how close he is, just how important we are, just how much like, I mean, all of this is for you and me. Like, that's amazing, man. Like, it's for human beings, right? Like, we're the center of God's affection. That's amazing, man.
Unbelievable, man. Like, it's truly a blessing. And that was like the biggest thing about, waking up to the flat earth part, because that definitely did help my spirit, because, now it's like I'm not reading the Bible with that preconceived notion that, Mars exists and things like that. It's like, no, this is the world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, I'm sorry, Frack. I see what you're saying, Frack. I disagree with that. We could talk offline if you want, or you can form some questions for me. Then I could answer that, because these are kind of vague stuff, vague things. Like, let's see here. Oh, hey, Chris. Yeah, we still praying about an opportunity for you. Oh man, everyone's here, man. It's time to hit the dusty trail, man. But I kind of want to go long, but it is what it is, you know. Oh, let me read
Yeah.
that. Let me read this because I should have read this before. Romans chapter 3, verse 22. We are made with God by placing our faith in Jesus Christ. And this is true for everyone who believes, no matter who we are. That's right. That's right. It's absolutely right.
It's that simple, you know, no matter what different walks of life, if you truly believe in Jesus Christ, you will be saved. And I'll even say that for people like, you know, Tom Brady or like, you know, these people who might be in on this whole like, you know, Illuminati, you know, secret societies or whatever. It's like, I don't think it's too late for them either. And I think, you know, it's possible for them to be saved, you know?
Yeah, and I think that like, well, I think once the okay, so once you got the Holy Spirit and you got that confirmation, right? That when you're being led, you know, like you know that God is in you. That's kind of like your down payment. That's kind of like what should make you feel secure. I think about salvation, and so it's hard for me to like describe it to people, right? And like I used to just put out Romans 10:9 because it was like, wow, this is a simple thing, and it says what it says. If you do this, you will be saved, right? And it was all about Jesus, him dying for our sins, raising from the dead, and confessing him as Lord, right? I'm like, okay, well, that's everything right there, right? It unless you're saying that that's not true. But then, like, you know, it's like, well, you know, being saved was more than that. It you know, was led to do things that I never thought I could do, right? And so like I don't know, I guess now like I would just say, hey, read these books about salvation. I'll tell you where there's a lot about salvation in the Bible. I would recommend reading it all, but if you just wanted to read about salvation, some good stuff, I can point out, you know, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of reading, right? And then just go to God for everything. And I think that's the step people are leaving out. Like they get unsure and then they want to like, you know, find someone that tells them what they want to hear. And so going to God with everything, when you feel insecure or when you feel like you're not doing it right or whatever, if you go straight to God and you're honestly seeking Him and your heart is right, you'll get whatever. I mean, you can't fail. Like I don't know how to express that enough. You know?
Yeah, yeah, very true. You know, it's you know, that's the best advice, you know, because God's going to explain something better than you can, better than I can. And yeah, one of us could be an instrument at that moment of time where God planned it out and we said the right thing that really sparked them, but at the end of the day, it's always God who leads us to the truth and will answer whatever challenges or questions that we have.
Yeah. You are right on that, my brother. Alrighty, guys. Well, it is time to hit that old dusty trail. And so I just want to say thanks to Luke. Thanks, Luke, for going along with me this morning. And
Hey, always a pleasure, my friend.
yeah, and I always encourage anybody that like, you know, wants to talk to me offline or whatever, that you know, a good servant 22 at gmail.com. And you know, even if it's something we got to discuss live, you know, we can work it out, we can figure it out. And so you know, the key is for you know, the key is for everyone to get what they need to get out of this, right? And so I'm here for that, you know. And so anyway, alrighty, guys, thank you guys so much for coming. I love you guys so much. This is by far like the best part of my day. And I'll say this, praise Jesus for his sacrifice and his grace. And all glory goes to God because he deserves it. And pray for the kids, pray for anyone being victimized, and pray for each other. It's important. And I will see you guys, Lord willing, tonight at 5 p.m. California time.